From our State House studio in Montgomery, I'm Todd Stacy. Welcome to Capitol Journal. Leading the news this week is a leadership shakeup in the Alabama Senate. Senate President Pro Tem Greg Reed announced that he is stepping down from the upper chamber's top post in order to take a position in Governor Kay Ivey's administration, spearheading the state's workforce development efforts. This past legislative session, the legislature enacted the Working for Alabama plan that aims to streamline and better coordinate the state's sometimes disparate workforce development programs. Part of that package included consolidating agencies into one Department of Workforce with a cabinet-level secretary to lead it all. That will be the position Reed will eventually take as the agency gets stood up over the next 6 months. But he'll start in January as senior advisor to the governor on workforce to oversee that transition. I'll speak with Senator Reed in more detail about this move later in the show. Of course, Reed's move means that the Senate is going to need a new president pro tem. This week in Birmingham, the Senate Republican caucus met to discuss their next steps. 2 senators have put their name forward for consideration. Senator Steve Livingston from Scottsboro, who currently serves as Majority Leader, and Senator Garland Gudger from Coleman, who is currently the chairman of the Fiscal Responsibility and Economic Development Committee. The caucus will meet again on December 3rd, when they are expected to vote on a new Senate leader. Never a dull moment in Alabama politics. Speaking of Governor Ivey, she visited Troy this week for the dedication of the new Ivey Center for the Cultural Approach to History at Troy University. The center is named not for her, but for her late uncle, Dr. Turner Ivey, an Auburn professor who pioneered an innovative approach to teaching history. His methodology prioritized storytelling and cultural connections, making history more engaging and meaningful. Troy University Chancellor Jack Hawkins emphasized that the center aligns with the university's commitment to forward-thinking education. At a time when many Americans struggle with basic civics knowledge, this center's mission is critical for fostering a deeper understanding of our nation's history.
And recent tests indicate that about 70% of Americans fail a basic civics quiz. You think about that. When we become ignorant of our past, when we become ignorant of how blessed we are, we stand on the threshold of losing that very blessing. And that's what I see the Ivey Center is about, bringing to life in a very meaningful way through the cultural approach, learning. Not rote memorization that many of us remember, but learning.
Personally, I'm deeply proud of the work of my late Uncle Turner Ivey for pioneering the cultural approach to teaching history that we celebrate today. During his long teaching career at Auburn University, including the time that I was a student on campus, Uncle Turner was a revered and respected professor. You had to be a serious student to pass his course. I didn't take it.
Big news this week in the gambling industry. The Porch Band of Creek Indians announced it is acquiring the Birmingham Racecourse and Casino in northeast Jefferson County. The property is currently owned by the family of the late Milton McGregor. The McGregors will still own Victory Land in Macon County. According to the announcement, the tribe's Wind Creek brand intends to transform the property into a tourist destination. The Porch Creeks own 3 other casinos on their tribal lands in Wetumpka, Montgomery, and Atmore. Non-Indian casinos have faced multiple series of crackdowns over the years as the state has endeavored to enforce laws banning the use of slot machines. Gambling was obviously a big topic in this past legislative session, and with this announcement, it could well be a big topic in the next one, too. This week, the A+ Education Partnership and Teach for America teamed up to put on the Opportunity Summit in Birmingham. The conference brought together more than 400 education advocates, policymakers, teachers, students, parents, and other stakeholders to discuss ways to improve the educational landscape in Alabama. A+ President Mark Dixon said the summit is a chance to explore the future of education and reimagine what's possible through teamwork.
So with the Opportunity Summit, our goal every year is to bring together a diverse group of stakeholders that really care about education and care about moving Alabama forward, to learn about the challenges we have, but also the progress that we're making and the opportunities that we have to continue to build a great education system. So folks had the opportunity to attend sessions to learn about policies that are being enacted. They were able to learn more about the best teaching practices that they can take back to their school. But the real goal is to come away with an understanding of what we can do to improve education in Alabama.
This week marked Rural Health Day, and state healthcare leaders gathered in Bibb County to honor champions of rural health in a time of acute challenges in the field. State Health Officer Dr. Scott Harris and State Senator April Weaver were amongst those in attendance.
This is National Rural Health Day, and it's a day when we want to stop and remember the importance of health care to our rural areas. You know, healthcare facilities like the one here in Centerville are not just available to take care of people's illness, but they're actually economic drivers. They're continue the whole success of the community. They give a place for people to meet, to come together. They're just vital. I mean, and having a really robust healthcare center is really what National Rural Healthcare Day is all about. It's how we keep our rural areas robust and vital.
Such an exciting day here in Centerville where people are seeing what we have known all along. You know, Bibb Medical Center is a shining star not only in the state but in the nation. As the former regional director of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, I have seen Bibb Medical Center best practices used all across the nation. And today I think everyone is seeing what we've known all along, that the people here at Bibb Medical Center are very innovative and they're very forward thinking and they're doing great things.
I think the vision is to create access to all those things that we can do here safely. I think at the end of the day, that was the goal, was to provide those services that we can do and then partner with those upstream that we may not, whether it's surgeries in Tuscaloosa or Birmingham, that we have great partners, or but it was really to create as much local access to health care, and then as well create good jobs, be a place that people wanted to work, wanted to be a part of, and give back to the community. If we're successful, I think it's on us to make sure we affect the community positively.
If you watched the high school football championships here on APT last year, you probably remember seeing something a little different: flag football, a sport that has been growing in popularity, especially at the high school level. This week, the Alabama Community College Conference announced that women's flag football will be added to its athletic offerings next year.
We're gathered to announce and celebrate the official start of women's flag football beginning in the fall of 2025. This new and exciting sport is going to bring additional opportunities to female student athletes and provide that additional opportunity for them to continue the sport that they love.
Girls flag football presents an opportunity for competition, which speaks for itself. It represents an opportunity for relationships with coaches, players, communities, and that's something that is incredibly important as far as athletics go. And then it also represents an opportunity for community engagement, for our communities to come together and root for another sport, to root for another group of student athletes and give them that opportunity to get out there on the field and compete on behalf of their community college.
Through our foundation, we're providing multiple safe and age-appropriate athletic programs. We want to positively affect the underserved areas in our state. We're going into the underserved areas in our state. This is a huge piece for us to be able to say, hey, grassroots, high school, collegiate, and give them that vision, help them have that vision of where they can go and playing flag football.
We are getting a look at some updated renderings of the new State House, currently under construction across the street. The architectural firm Goodwin Mills & Kaywood is designing the building and produced these interesting photos. Take a look. There you see the outside of the building. We are told that the dome will not be taller than the Capitol Dome, and the architects are seeing to that. Here is a rendering of the Senate chamber from the perspective of the gallery, a familiar layout, but much nicer and some natural light. That's the House chamber, which is really improved just without the presence of those load-bearing columns in the middle of the room. This is the lobby space between the House and Senate chamber, which will be on the same floor, unlike in the current building. And this is one floor above, which is in between the galleries for the House and Senate. Again, all together there. This is the joint large committee room, which will be used for very large gatherings. There's another large committee room. There are going to be 2 of those large committee rooms, 4 medium-sized rooms, and 4 small rooms. And again, here is the rendering of the outside of the building. The idea is to accommodate the public in a better way than the current building offers. Construction is ongoing, and the building is on schedule to be operational for the 2027 legislative session. The Port of Mobile is undergoing a major expansion aiming to solidify its role as a key player in global trade. With plans for significant infrastructure improvements and $1 billion investment over the next decade, the port is positioning itself to drive economic growth across Alabama and the South. Capital Journal's Jeff Sanders has that story.
The Port of Mobile is rapidly expanding. As one of the fastest growing ports in the U.S., it's doubling its container capacity to solidify its position as a key logistics hub. The port's expansion plan is expected to enhance Alabama's economy by increasing its ability to handle larger ships and greater cargo volumes. John Driscoll serves as director of the Alabama Port Authority.
In the next 10 years, we're looking at investing about $1 billion, which is significant, but there's so much more we could do if we had additional capacity, like almost any business, but this business has really shown some potential that's beyond anybody's expectation.
A key part of the port's transformation is the deepening of the Mobile shipping channel to 50 feet, making it the deepest port along the Gulf of Mexico. This project, which has received federal funding, will accommodate the world's largest ships, allowing the port to handle even more cargo.
The impact to the rest of the state can be tremendous. 1 in 7 jobs is somehow tied to the port, to the Alabama's port here in Mobile. So we really stretched in our business is through all 67 counties in the state.
But the expansion goes beyond Mobile. New intermodal facilities in the state, including one in Montgomery, will improve statewide railway connectivity to the port.
When we announced that facility there, it's an intermodal container facility for imports and exports into that probably about a 100-mile radius from the Montgomery area. So some of the core customers are like a Hyundai or a Sabic, which is an export resin customer in Burkeville, Alabama. Those type of businesses are really going to be able to continue to move their cargo in a more efficient fashion, because a lot of those products, some of those products are moving to other gateways. So this 165-mile run on a railroad is going to give them another option.
But despite its growth, the Port of Mobile has faced challenges. A recent strike by the International Longshoremen's Association temporarily impacted container operations. However, Driscoll notes that the overall impact was minimal.
About 20% of our cargo tonnage is container business that's impacted by this. So that means 80% of our cargo is not impacted by that particular labor union and management discussion that's going on.
The port's expansion projects are on track to be completed by 2027, ensuring continued growth and new economic opportunities for businesses across the state. Reporting for Capital Journal, I'm Jeff Sanders.
This digital age we're living in comes with all kinds of conveniences that we take advantage of. But those online conveniences can also come with risk of cyber attacks, and the same goes for the state of Alabama. Capital Journal's Randy Scott caught up with the Alabama Office of Information Technology to learn more about their cybersecurity measures.
You're looking at efforts to keep technology in Alabama safe, whether it's new tools such as expanded broadband or keeping important databases secure. The Alabama Office of Information Technology, or OIT, plays a big part.
Or oversees, rather, the IT policy for all of the executive branch agencies. We're also a service agency, so we do a lot of work around the state to ensure that our agencies have the telecommunications and just the general IT connectivity and resources that they need to carry out their individual missions.
Jeremy Ward is the Director of Communications for the OIT.
We are in charge of the state network, all of the just the individual components, IT components that help the state operate that falls in under our purview. So yeah, pretty big job, and it's a lot of work, but we have a lot of good agency partners that assist in that effort.
With all the technical advances going on throughout Alabama, you can believe cybersecurity is a top priority. The Office of Information Technology is a state department charged with helping make sure projects such as expanding broadband or keeping state agencies connected and protected stays on track. It's a big job, but OIT say they're up for the challenge.
There is a grant program, a federal grant program called the State and Local Cybersecurity Grant Program, or SLCGP for short.
Ward says actions have been taken to strengthen this program.
The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act was passed by the United States Congress. There is a large portion of that was carved off specifically for cybersecurity and to develop a grant program that would assist all 50 states and U.S. territories.
Paving the way for meetings like this, bringing stakeholders from all over Alabama together to plan more protection steps.
We partner a lot with other agencies, with also third-party state partners to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to be as prepared, not just when something happens, but ahead of when something happens at the state level.
In Montgomery, Randy Scott, Capital Journal.
We are saddened to report that former Finance Director Kelly Butler passed away this week at the age of 61. Butler spent decades advising lawmakers and the governor on fiscal matters, and he helped the state navigate the complexities of the COVID-19 pandemic. He stepped down in 2021 after he was diagnosed with ALS, sometimes known as Lou Gehrig's disease. Governor Kay Ivey called Butler the epitome of a public servant and a good man. State Representative Steve Klaus, who worked with Kelly for 3 decades, said, quote, "He was always looking out for the taxpayer." It's quite a legacy to leave behind. Our thoughts and prayers are with the Butler family.
You can watch past episodes of Capital Journal online at video.aptv.org. Capital Journal episodes are also available on APTV's free mobile app. You can also connect with Capital Journal and link to past episodes on Capital Journal's Facebook page. And you can listen to past episodes of Capital Journal when you're driving or on the go with Capital Journal podcasts. Keep up with what's happening with Capital Journal.
Welcome back to Capital Journal. Joining me next is State Senator Greg Reed, President Pro Tem of the Alabama Senate. Senator, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Todd. It's always a privilege to be with you.
I should say at the moment, President Pro Tem, because that's the big news. You have announced you will step down as President Pro Tem of the Alabama Senate, the leader of the Alabama Senate, to take a post in workforce development under Governor Ivey. So that's the big news. We talked about it a little bit earlier in the newscast, but tell me about this. How did this come about, and walk me through your reasoning.
Well, first off, what a great journey it has been. What a great privilege it's been to represent the people of Senate District 5 from my home up in Northwest Alabama, and also to be given the privilege to be the majority leader in the Alabama Senate for 6 years and the Senate President for 4 years. Being in elected Senate leadership for 10 years, that's fantastic, and I am so honored and pleased to have been able to have done that. Had so many great things happen, made so many relationships, so many friends. It's exciting, and to your point, I'm not leaving public service, just moving to a different location to be able to do something that I think is very important. But you ask about how did it happen. You know, the legislature's worked on a series of different pieces of legislation to help move us forward economically. And so a lot of that was in the Working for Alabama plan that I worked closely with the governor and the speaker and others on in the last legislative session, which was very important for a lot of different reasons. As a result of finishing all that, several months ago, the governor of Alabama came to me and said, we're going to have to stand up this new agency, and it's going to have all of the Department of Labor and portions of the Department of Commerce, and our focus is workforce, and that's the element that's still there that we've got to move forward with. And this is the most important thing in the balance of my tenure as governor of Alabama, and would you be willing to lead the effort? So a lot of prayer and a lot of discussion and thought, but I made the decision that it would be a good opportunity for me, something that I've been already very involved in. Even, you know, when you're involved and engaged in a process, you don't think about what happened before or yesterday or whatever until you're forced to kind of take a look at retrospectively at what's going on. And this for me has been a hallmark of my focus: job creation, workforce issues. You know, I sponsored the original Jobs Act, the AIM Act, the Growing for Alabama Act, the renewal of the Jobs Act, the Jobs Act again in the game plan, and then the Growth Alliance, which is a big focus on economic development just in this Working for Alabama plan. So this is not a new theme for me. It's something that I've been working on diligently during my tenure in the legislature.
So now you get to actually implement those workforce laws, and this is this eventually is a cabinet level. It takes some time to set up the department, right? We kind of colloquially refer to it as the workforce czar, but the director of all these silos coming together into one cohesive workforce agency, right?
You're exactly right. So you're going to have the Department of Labor, portions of the Department of Commerce are going to come together under this new super agency, and there will be a window of transition there. I'll be as an advisor to the governor during that window of transition, but then by summertime, the agency itself will stand up and be able to operate and function. This agency is going to be working with K-12 education, the two-year college system, all of our four-year college institutions, working with business, working with industry. In the legislation that created this workforce department, you're going to have two very important advisory commissions or committees. You've got an executive committee that's got members there. It's chaired by Jeff Peoples, the chair of Alabama Power. You've got Phil Webb, who's a businessman from Calhoun County, is going to be the chair of another 40-member group that is a who's who of Alabama business people that are going to be bringing their thoughts and ideas in a theme that's going to be, here's all we're doing in education, here's all that we've set up as far as economic growth and development as the legislature and the governor, here's all the ideas from industry and growth in the economy and what's needed for folks to be involved in working in all of these different industries that are looking for great success in Alabama. How do we pull all that together and have a cohesive plan to be able to move that forward so we increase our workforce participation rates, we have more Alabamians involved in the process, they get great jobs, they get great opportunities and benefits for their families, and Alabama's economy continues to grow because we have what's necessary, the most important element, which is workers, trained workers from every aspect of the economy to be able to engage and allow us to continue to grow.
You kind of answered my next question for me, because I was going to say, what needs to happen organizationally? Y'all have passed, like you said, many laws, well-intended. I think most of them unanimous, if not very close to it. And so now you got to implement. Now it's time to implement. Do you think you'll benefit from your time in the legislature? Because the legislature has to be involved in all this too. There are going to be times when, hey, laws need to be tweaked. And so that relationship coming back and saying, hey, this isn't working the way we intended. We need to tweak it this way. I mean, you've served so long in this building, that's going to be a benefit to you, right?
Well, I think it'll be a benefit. I mean, my tenure in service for 14 years in the Alabama Senate is going to be a benefit to me, period. On anything I'm doing moving forward, I've learned so much and been given so much as a part of the process. But in understanding how the legislation works and what the intent of the legislature was, then understanding all of the ideas that may be coming from industry and business, and then what are educators going to be doing to be able to facilitate allowing folks to get the training they need to meet the demands of the 21st century job market. making sure that all that works is going to be something that is going to need a lot of collaboration. And I think that's the attitude that has been moving forward with the need for this. Certainly the way the governor had explained it to me in her interest early on was we've got to coordinate this together. The goal is to increase our workforce participation rate. If you go back to 1997, Alabama's workforce participation, how many people are working? That number was 65%. Today that number is 57%, okay? If we increase Alabama's workforce participation rate by just 1 percentile, it will add 50,000 trained workers into Alabama's economy. That's unbelievable.
And part of that's removing barriers, right? We talked a lot about that last session, about whether it's healthcare or transportation, housing. These barriers that maybe we take for granted, that the barriers to people actually wanting to participate, benefits cliff, all that kind of stuff. It's interesting because I've heard Nick Moore in the governor's office talk about this, till he's blue in the face. But now there's going to be a cabinet level agency, you specifically, talking to the legislature about this, talking about these barriers. And I think that's interesting. The focus on workforce has been elevated to the point that it is a key focus of not just this administration, but into the future.
There's no question about it. And the legislature's bought in already. Because if you go back and even look at just the most recent package with Working for Alabama, what were other elements that we included there? Other than the Growth Alliance, which focuses all of our economic development ideas together in a public-private partnership to know what does industry, what does business need, what does education need, what's the legislature want to do, all of that. But if you look at other things we did, tax credits for child care, saying to businesses, if mom wants to come back to the workforce and you're willing to provide child care for her so that we take care of her babies while she's willing to work.
That's a big one.
Then we're going to give you a benefit for doing that, okay? Housing credits. We got a lot of places to where jobs are open, they're available. We need workers to be in those jobs, but people don't have anywhere to live in those areas. Places like Huntsville or Baldwin County where you got real issues there. So the legislature's already added some things. The thing that I think is one of the coolest is the Career Pathways Diploma. Brand new diploma, brand new opportunity for kids in high school. If you identify in the 9th or 10th grade, hey, I've looked at the different options that are being presented, I want to be a machinist. That's something that I'm interested in, what I want to do. That kid's able to identify under this new diploma, identify in the 9th or 10th grade, that's what I want to do. There's going to be programs for apprenticeships and training and internships associated with their interest. They're going to be able to go through a career tech instruction program within their high school, and their career tech instruction program maybe in a collaborative effort with other high schools in one location potentially. And then once they're ready to move into their senior year, there's a dual enrollment scholarship waiting for them, the state's funding, for them to graduate high school and get all of their certificates in this particular area of expertise from the junior college in their community. And at 18 and 19 years old, they've graduated from high school, they've got all these certificates. This training has already been theirs to enjoy, and the industry is going to be standing in line to hire these kids because they're focused, they're trained, they're ready to go. If we can do that just in a small scale for kids that are focused and interested, you think what that's going to mean to our workforce 2 years, 5 years, 10 years out. I mean, these are the kinds of things that are revolutionary, transformative.
Yeah,
in
it
being
takes a little
able
while,
to,
but
it'll take a little while.
I totally understand that.
Yeah.
Okay, so stepping down as pro tem, that means we're going to have a new pro tem, right? And so I know y'all had a caucus in Birmingham. There's going to be another one coming up, I guess, on the 3rd to talk about who's going to be your successor. I won't get into the politics of all that because I know it's very internal and that'll all play out. But I'm curious what your advice would be. I know we've got Senator Livingston and Senator Gudger expressing interest in the new pro tem, being the new pro tem. What would be your advice to them as they're seeking to be your successor?
Well, the one thing I would say about my absolute love and affection and appreciation for the members of the Alabama Senate, I mean, these are just some of the most dedicated and quality-focused individuals I've ever worked with on anything. And they're here for the right reasons. They're serving their constituencies. They're interested in the best things for the people of Alabama. We've just talked about a lot of things that these men and women have been engaged and involved in, trying to do to move our economy forward for the benefit of our people, for the benefit of citizenry, that to have jobs and high-paying jobs and all the things that are important. So I love these folks, and it is certainly a bittersweet thought for me to not be hanging with them every minute all the time. To your point, they've got a process coming up, and that'll be their process to choose as the caucus. You've got great men, dedicated gentlemen that are willing to step up and say they're interested in these themes and opportunities for the future. You know, the things that are a little bit of the inside baseball, if you will, about being the Senate president, you know, the one thing is I've taken the attitude as Senate president that my job is to figure out what the other 34 senators really want to do and try and help them advance the issues that are important to them. Sometimes those issues are collective because they're all good for Alabama, and you wind up with the entire body is focused on themes that are enthusiastic options. We've talked about a couple of those.
Interesting that you said 35 and not 27. So you're talking about the entire Senate, Republicans and Democrats. That's
absolutely. That has to be the attitude. I mean, the Senate president is the servant of all other members. So the other 34 members, other than you as a member, are who you're serving. That's the approach that I've taken with the job, and trying to help those men and women get their issues across the line. Now, that creates conflict. That's the political process. You know, you're going to have Republicans and Democrats that don't agree. You're going to have folks from the North Alabama versus the South Alabama, you know, all those kinds of things. The Alabama fans versus the Auburn fans. I mean, hey, it's all part of the process. But genuinely trying to help those individuals move things along has been such a good thing for me. It builds such close relationships in trying to help others accomplish the things that are important in their districts. Things that may be important to a senator in a certain area of northwest Alabama may not be of any interest to somebody in the Wiregrass, but the fact that trying to help everybody accomplish things that are important has been something fun for me. Now, when you get into the detail of what's happening, there's always discussion about if something's going to happen in a certain area of the state, how does it affect me? And how does it affect my constituents? And so you expect that because the job of the senators they're sent by their electorate to come and represent and do everything they can, just like I've tried to do. I mean, if there's an opportunity to lean in on something for Senate District 5, that's what I've been trying to accomplish in the tenure that I've served. They're doing the same thing. So you get all that going at the same time while you're in session. You wind up with what are competing interests. You recognize it, but the reality is for the vast majority of things, there are things that they're, as men and women, focused on good for Alabama. And you mentioned Republicans and Democrats, and that's been a hallmark of what I've tried to do in my service. I've made statements multiple times on your program that I wanted to be a pro tem that was willing to listen to everybody's input, because I felt like if we were able and willing to do that, we would wind up with a better outcome in the end. Just to think that I've got all the answers, I thought that was not the right approach, and it has proven to me that the approach of listening to everybody's input, whether you agree with them or not, but you wind up with things that are gleaned out of that willingness to listen and learn that winds up with a better product for the people of Alabama. And that's what we're all about. It's not about me, it's not about them, it's not about individuals, it's what's good for Alabama. And I think that attitude has been a hallmark of what I've tried to do, and it's been well received by Republicans, Democrats, folks from throughout the state, and it's been a real joy for me to be engaged in that.
Well, I will say, I've said this before, but my big thing is, you know, don't let what happened in Washington, D.C. happen in Montgomery. Don't let the extremism on both sides, running to the extremes and being kind of governed and dominated by the extremes. You see what that has done to the U.S. Congress. It hasn't happened here, and to your point, I think the Senate and the House here in the legislature have been, you know, pretty much bipartisan on the issues that really matter. I think that's a good thing for the state. So you're to be commended for that, and I know that's good advice for who's coming next. Look, it's going to be the first time in this next session is going to be the first time in 15 years, right, that you won't be a lawmaker. I guess that's bittersweet, but you'll be around. But are you going to miss it?
You know, I'll miss it. I've been talking with folks in my district. People have been so gracious. They've been kind to me. They've thanked me for my service, and it's been a privilege. I've heard from so many people. As all the news was breaking related to all these and the decisions that I was making, of course, I was on the phone hour after hour after hour, talking to people, and that's been a really positive thing for me. And I've been so appreciative of the attitude that people have had in regards to my service. And you know, public service is still in my heart. That's still my interest. You know, the things that we're going to be doing in this agency moving forward to try and help Alabamians accomplish all their goals in regards to their jobs and careers and our economy to be able to grow. That's still going to be public service. So I'm still going to be working with my colleagues. I'm still going to be working with, of course, the governor's team, working with my friend, the Speaker of the House. All are interested in these ideas being successful. And so this is going to be a new opportunity for me. I think it will add a lot. I'm hoping it will add a lot of opportunity for new relationships, new interactions, visiting with people that maybe I've not had a reason to engage with before, that will give me a chance for new relationships and ways to serve others in a different and new way. And that's going to be exciting for me. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, you've been generous with your time over the years since I've been host and Don Daly before me here at APT to come and explain issues. You've always been available, so thank you for that. But we're going to lean on you again when you're in this new role, because workforce is certainly a priority. So thank you for that. And congratulations on your new appointment.
Thank you so much, Todd. It's been a privilege to be your friend, to have a chance to talk to all of your listeners. You guys have done a great job in allowing me to help get the message of what we're doing in the Alabama Senate and the legislature to the people of Alabama, and that's been so important. And to your point, it will again be important as we think about workforce and growing our economy and all the things that will be in the future related to this new agency and my opportunity to lead it. And I want to come back and tell that story soon. So look forward to it.
Absolutely. Thanks again. We'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capitol Journal online anytime at Alabama Public Television's website, aptv.org. Click on the Online Video tab on the main page. You can also connect with Capitol Journal and link to past episodes on Capitol Journal's Facebook page. You're watching Alabama Public Television.
Welcome back to Capitol Journal. Joining me next is Alabama's State Treasurer, Young Boozer. Mr. Boozer, thanks for coming on the show.
Good to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
It's been a while. A lot to catch up on.
Okay.
We have just finished the fiscal year. Well, I guess it's more than a month ago, but we finished the fiscal year, started a new one. So I wanted to have you on to give us an update. Where are we financially? Is there a state of play for the state? You're our state banker, so give us an update.
Okay, good. Be happy to. Well, let me put it in perspective, is that just recently I've been at a National Association of State Treasurers meeting and talked to other treasurers around the country about what's happening in their state. And as I judge it, I would say Alabama's doing better than most. And if we look at the numbers that we have produced for this fiscal year that ended on September 30th, our numbers are very, very good, very good. So okay. I think we're in good shape, and the prospects are good too. Yeah.
That's nice to hear compared to other states. I mean, I guess other states are richer than Alabama and everything, but you're talking about based on the resources we have and where we stand with debt and things like that.
I am.
Yeah.
I am.
Okay.
And one of the great things about the state of Alabama is that from a Constitution's point of view, we have to have a balanced budget on an annual basis, and it's a cash balanced budget. There are a lot of states that don't have that situation. So you have a number of states like Illinois and California that borrow in order to cover losses and shortfalls. Well, we don't have that situation. So it makes us more fiscally responsible and more sound fiscally.
So we're not racking up $32 trillion, whatever it is, the national debt.
No.
Well, along those same lines, I know that we have some trust funds, we have some accounts that generate interest, for revenue for the state.
Yeah.
And you've told me before that, when interest rates went up, it's a bummer for consumers, but actually good for funds like that. So where are we with those accounts, like Alabama Trust Fund and the like?
Well, let me break them into a couple of different categories, okay? The first one is really the bank account, right? So we have a fund that we call the Treasurer's Fund. And that's basically revenues that come in, we hold them, manage those, and then we turn the money over to the comptroller when the checks need to be written. So, and let me give you a comparison. So when I was termed out in January of 2019, that balance in that fund was $3.6 billion. Before I came over here today, I checked on what the balance is today. It's $13.7 billion. So
that's $10 billion in growth.
$10 billion more in that time period in about a 4 or 5 year period. So you say, well, where did that money come from? Well, if I don't know exactly the breakout, but a good portion of that is federal funds.
ARPA and yeah, okay.
Exactly, from those programs that have been enacted by the administration. So that has built up. And of course, the idea there is we're giving you this money for these types of projects. You're going to do broadband. You're going to have water and sewer projects, et cetera, et cetera. And that has been queued up and waiting to be spent. Well, they're still writing some contracts and they're still working on some of the construction on these things, and a lot of that money hasn't been paid out. So we're still holding that. And I'm going to say that's maybe about $7 billion of the 10. The other $3 billion is our money that we have earned through the operations of the state of Alabama over that time period, because we have had increased revenues and we have had surpluses in a number of different areas. So we're up about $10 billion in balance. And also during that time period, and this is a once in a lifetime phenomenon, is that interest rates in 19 were zero, virtually zero.
Right.
They went on a short-term basis as high as 5.5%. Well, that's a massive increase. When, if you calculate the interest earned on those balances over this time period, I'm going to go back 4 years when this all started. 4 years ago, those monies made about $20 million.
In interest per year?
In interest that year.
Okay.
Okay. Interest income that year. 3 years ago, it made $40 million. It doubled in 1 year. 2 years ago, that number was $405 million.
Goodness gracious.
It went up by a factor of 10.
All because of interest rates.
Interest rates in the balance, right? The year that has just closed, I don't know what the exact number is right now, but I believe it to be about $555 million. Wow. So this is a phenomenal difference. In 3 years or 4 years, the Treasurer's Office on that fund has earned over $1 billion. Now, a lot of that has, the legislature is aware of this.
I was going to say, where does that money go?
Well, I don't know where it's going to go, but the legislators will figure it out. But so it's been an incredible run, but I think the run is ending. Interest rates are starting to go down. The federal funds rate has been dropped by about 75 basis points. That'll make a difference. That money that is being held for these projects, it will be spent, and it'll be spent over the next couple of years. So that number is going to come down. But a lot of people have said, well, we believe that inflation is transitory and that's going to go down rapidly. I don't think that. I think it's going to be sticky. And I think it's going to be slower to move down than people expected, because I've got $7 billion or more to be spent in the next 2 years. Well, there are 49 other states that are in similar positions.
Right.
And as Milton Friedman has said over the years, the definition of inflation is too many dollars chasing too few goods. That's the situation we've been in for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to continue for a while until all this money is spent.
Well, because every state, or a lot of states, are doing broadband. A lot of states are doing water and sewer, same kind of, and so yeah, those materials are at a premium right now.
Yes. So engineering, construction, materials, steel, concrete, all of that's in demand. Yeah.
Well, also relatedly, Alabama Trust Fund.
Yes.
How is that fund faring?
Well, it's doing really well. We just had our board meeting this morning. We had a great report, not only for the Alabama Trust Fund, but we also manage money for the cities and the counties and the municipalities, called the CMT. And so the report is, For the ATF, we're at $4 billion. That's grown dramatically over the last couple of years. This year, we had over a 20% rate of return on the portfolio, and that portfolio generates $170, $175 million a year for other operations. About $120 million of that goes directly to the general fund, $15 million to Forever Wild and some other recipients. But it is, back in 2012, Arthur Orr and I got together and we decided we needed to restructure that thing because it was not working. So we know where the money's coming from the natural gas revenues. We're investing it in the 21st century type mode with an asset allocation that is broadly diversified and has done well over the last couple of years. And it's a fund that we can count on for the next 2 years because we can now forecast what the amount to be paid to the state is. Before, we were guessing really the day after the fiscal year was ending.
That's really nice when you're a budget chairman, all right, to be able to predict.
Oh, absolutely, right, absolutely.
I wanted to ask you about other people's money, meaning citizens' money. When you were here last time, you talked about your unclaimed property program, and I had some unclaimed property at the time. Had no idea. It was about $600. I mean, had accrued over the years.
Yeah.
Talk about this program and how people can check to see if they have unclaimed property, really meaning money.
Yes. So, you know, I've been a treasurer, I've been a chief financial officer, I've been a banker for my whole career. And I've done all this stuff that we do in the treasurer's office. The one thing I'd never done before was unclaimed property. It is the most fun part of my job because everybody smiles when they get their check. And we love reuniting people with their own money. So right now we have about $1.3 billion in unclaimed property, which for the most part cash balances. And it represents about 13 million claims. So there are a lot of claims out there and a huge amount of money. We paid out this last year about $41 million for 33,000 claims. So if you kind of do the numbers here, you're going to realize that the average claim is a little bit over $100, and the average receipt from to the people is about $100 too. But sometimes it can be $1, and other times it can be $1 million. So you've just got to check to see if you've got unclaimed property. Now, the last time I was here, I had a check for you because we checked on you.
Yeah.
Right? So I thought, well, I'm coming over here today to talk. What should I think I'll check to see if you have more. Well, I checked, and you don't.
Good.
Okay. So I checked Todd Stacy, does he have unclaimed property? No. And I thought, well, I wonder if I've got anything. So I checked on Young Boozer, and I didn't have anything either.
Okay.
But then I thought, wait, I'm going to do a mashup. I'm going to do Todd Boozer and see if Todd Boozer has any money. I checked on him. He had 10 claims, and I'm not going to tell you the amount of money, but it was a significant amount of money. So now, I just happen to know of Todd Boozer because he grew up in Tuscaloosa, and he was the son of Ray Boozer, who was a distant family.
Okay.
Right? So I called him up on the phone. I said, Todd, this is Young Boozer. You got unclaimed property. He went crazy. It was, he's got a nice amount of money. He has a brother named Trent. And so I went down the list, and there's Trent. So he's on the board. So you can check on yourself, you can check on your family, you can check on your relatives, but you need to check.
Yeah, well, with Christmas coming up, that's a nice little.
I would love to give you a Christmas present.
Right,
yeah.
absolutely.
And anybody else there in TV land, that would be great.
Yeah, and we'll put up the website and everything so people
please
can,
do. Please
find that. That is a lot of fun. It's like finding money on the street or something.
Yes.
Totally unexpected.
And contact us at treasury.alabama.gov. You can do it online, or you can call us, and we're very efficient. We're keen on customer service.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. I wanted to ask you about kind of an old issue, but one that you were really involved in, Birmingham Southern. The closure of that, it was a really emotional thing for a lot of people, a lot of alumni and everything. You took a lot of flack, because you made the decision that it was not a wise investment for the state to basically bail them out of the tens of millions of dollars. You took a lot of flack for that. So I'm wondering, in the year or so since all that went down, did the facts bear out that you were correct on that, and you stand by the decision that was a bad investment? No,
there's no question. That was the right decision. Let's go back in time. Is that a bill was offered and a law was passed to establish a $30 million loan program for institutions of higher education
distressed.
Yeah. And Birmingham Southern fit that, but also we got a request from Selma University, which had similar issues but much smaller situation. Look, the bill was passed. I did exactly what the law said, and the interesting thing is that Birmingham Southern had made the rounds trying to get grants and donations, et cetera, but they were unable to do it. And this was a situation of being the lender of last opportunity, right? And I basically took the law, I read through it, and said, this is what I've been asked to do. And it was just for me. I was the person who was going to have to do it. And I said, this is what we're going to do. I've also want to let everybody know that I had been in banking for 35 years. I know something about credit and these types of things. There were 4 tests that they needed to pass, and they failed on all 4. Enrollment had dropped dramatically, tuition had dropped dramatically, they were overstaffed and overpaid, and their endowment had been spent. They had $130 million in endowment in the year 2000, and they were basically out, they were basically at zero when they closed.
So would you say, because when all that went down, there were people in this building saying, you know, hate to say it, but they probably would have closed even if that loan was made. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that.
Okay. Well, I wanted to get your perspective on it
Yeah.
And everything, because that was, you know,
a
sad thing.
It was a very sad thing. It was very unfortunate. But if you go back and look at the history of it, and this had been going on for a long time, and it was predicted by a number of people even before we saw it as it came through the legislature.
Do you think it's a lesson for institutions, not just colleges, but all institutions, of financial management? Because you can't wait until the 11th hour to get your books straight.
Yes, well, absolutely, it's a lesson.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, while I've got you,
Yeah.
you know, I wrote Inside Alabama Politics the other day and talked about who all might be angling to run for governor. I did not mention you, and I thought, well, goodness, you've got like the best name in politics, maybe in the country. There's an open seat for governor. Would you ever consider putting your name in the hat?
No.
Just no.
Should I expound on that?
Well,
No,
I guess
look,
you could run for treasurer again.
I can. Look, and I've been the treasurer for a couple of terms. I've got a fantastic staff. When we first came in here, we had 64 people. Now we got 26. We have saved an incredible amount of money on a budget basis. We've got more talented people, more dedicated people. Got a great group. I've given you some numbers here that show that we know what we're doing and we can do it really well. I love this job, and it's the most fun job I've ever had. So if I've got an opportunity to do it one more time, I might think about doing that.
Interesting. As well, it's sometimes the folks without ambition that make the best candidates, but I'll take your word for it.
Okay.
Mr. Boozer, thanks again for coming on the show. And instead of me sending us out, I think you wanted to do the honors.
Would that be good?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, right there.
Right.
Middle camera, right there.
He'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capital Journal online at video.aptv.org. Capital Journal episodes are also available on APTV's free mobile app. You can also connect with Capital Journal and link to past episodes on Capital Journal's Facebook page. And you can listen to past episodes of Capital Journal when you're driving or on the go with Capital Journal podcasts.
Alabama Public Television is your place for quality educational services. Free professional development for educators and child care providers. Access to free curriculum-aligned videos, lesson plans, and instructional resources with PBS Learning Media. And all the PBS Kids programs parents know and trust. Learn something new every day with Alabama Public Television. Visit us at aptv.org/education to learn more.
You're watching Alabama Public Television. Broaden your horizons.
Before we go tonight, a little Thanksgiving fun. Per tradition, Governor Kay Ivey has pardoned 2 turkeys, granting the birds a reprieve from ending up on the Thanksgiving table. This year, the turkeys were named Gobbler and Cobbler after an online poll. The birds are provided by Bates Turkey Farm in a tradition that goes back more than 70 years.
Each November, we usher in a new Thanksgiving season by introducing a pair of special guests who've waited all year long to join us. A special thanks to Bates Turkey Farm of Fort Deposit for presenting these two fine birds for our review. As the turkey flies, this tom and hen have not come a long way, but their participation in this ceremony fulfills a 70-year tradition. After having been named by the public Gobbler and Cobbler, now appear before us to determine whether they will avoid the Thanksgiving dinner table. After much consideration of their quirks and gobbles, I believe I've reached an appropriate decision. Today, by the powers vested in me as governor of the state of Alabama, I hereby grant a full pardon to Cobbler and Gobbler so that they can spend their turkey day enjoying a meal of their own.
That's our show for this week. Thanks for watching. We won't have a show next week as we observe the Thanksgiving holiday, but we'll be back the following week at our usual time here on Alabama Public Television. For our Capital Journal team, I'm Todd Stacy. We'll see you next time.